we can make big differences with really small blocks. I don't know how many of you have heard that 1% better. It's a mindset, it's a philosophy. There's some psychology around it. There's actually statistics around it, but this whole philosophy of being 1% better every day can get you a 37x improvement by the end of the year. So if all you did was seek to improve 1% every single day, most of us can be like, yeah, I can try to get a little better every day by 1%. We're not asking 100%, we're saying 1%. By the end of the year, just you get massive gains. So if that's working on your business, 1% more. If it's working on your body or your health or your whatever it is, but just about 1% daily, keeping that small mindset, you will see like outsized gains by the end of the year. So baking that into the calendar, you can say, okay, well, where is that 1% in my calendar? Right? Is it in the morning when I'm working out? Is it when I'm meditating? Is it when I'm reading books? Is it when I'm having calls like this that are getting me 1% better? Right? You just got to be mindful of that. That kind of goes into this tiny gains, small wins. The name of the game is just stacking bricks in the wall of success. So those 1% better, they're just small bricks. And that's all we're trying to do every single day. Like in the world of cold calling and sales, you're just one more phone call, one more phone call, one more phone call. And over time, those little small bricks start to build this wall of success. When it comes to the time blocking per se, it is really important to protect your time blocks. I talked about this last week, but this is why it's important to enroll people that are around you in your ecosystem and let them see your time block. If it's a spouse, if it's a roommate, if it's a friend or kids or whatever, anyone that's in your world, employees, managers, whoever, whatever you're doing, you have to protect your time block. And one of the best ways to protect your time block is to enroll others so they can see what your time blocks are, right? Because it becomes really easy to distract people around us. I mean, I don't know how many of you are still going to the office, but back in the day, going to the office, someone would just pop in and be like, oh, hey, can I grab you for 5 minutes? Super distracting. I've seen, I don't know if you've ever been to one of those Brazilian restaurants where you get the color and then you turn the color over and it means bring me more meat. And then when you're ready to stop, you flip it over and it's like red, like leave me alone. Whatever you got to do to protect your time blocks. If you're in office, like maybe have a color coding system or close the door, but you got to protect your time blocks because people are coming for them. The world is coming for your time blocks. Everything, all these forces are coming for them. So you have to really protect those. And enrolling people around you is a big way to, get help and support around that. I know certain times of the day, I have more energy. So I'm trying to manage my energy as well as my time, right? And think about that when you're putting stuff on your time blocks. If you're putting things on your time block in times when you know you're just simply going to be distracted. For example, there's a moment in the day where we got to pick up our kids. That's not the best time to get into a heavy project, right? Maybe it's good time to just knock out small little tasks, but I know like, okay, the kids are going to be coming home and your brain starts to go to a different place. Hour after that, I got to start making dinner. So that block for me is a good time to start knocking out small tasks, right? Versus getting into like the deep work. That the deep work is in the morning when no one's around, everyone's asleep or what have you. That's when I can get in. So listening to the rhythm of your week. And remember, the greater the friction, the less likely the habit. Whenever you have more forces pushing against you, you're just going to fight. You're going to fight what's around you. So you don't want to fight your habits. You don't want to fight your time block. You just want to be friends with it, if you will. So make it natural and easy to complete your tasks and to fall into a rhythm, to fall in a habit. But you got to mind what your week is like, right? And what your day is like. Everyone has these different schedules. So I know what it sounds like for me, what it feels like for me. And that's what I'm just trying to jot it down and be more mindful of that. So I kind of gave myself last week as we kicked off this exercise to just listen again to my week and just kind of naturally pay attention to where I have more energy, where I feel more creative, where I feel distracted, when the real distractions come home, called my kids, things like that. They say that it takes 23 minutes to regain focus. So blocking out the distractions is very important because once a distraction occurs, it could take you, in theory, 23 minutes statistically to get back into a deep focus zone. So if you're jamming on a project and your phone you get a text and then you jump to the text and then now you're in this thing, oh, but now you're back on your phone and now you're on Instagram and then, oh, now you're over here and then the phone rings and you pick that up. it might take you a good 30 minutes to get back into the rhythm, back into the zone. That's a lot of time, by the way. 30 minutes is a lot of time. So you just got to be mindful of distractions. And then when you're really focused on a task, just try to focus on one task at a time. Just lock it in, say, this is what I'm going to get done on my time block, shut down the phone, shut down the distraction, and get into it. There's this misnomer around multitasking. It's actually impossible for the brain to multitask. I mean, think about it. You can't, be in two places at the same exact time. Monotasking is really the objective versus thinking you're being productive, working on multiple things and having multiple screens going on and having a podcast running and having music at the same time and kids running around in the background. And it's not the way to be productive. So being mindful of monotasking is important. I don't know if you've ever heard of the 1-3-5 rule, but it says every day try to pick one big task, 3 mid-sized tasks, and 5 small tasks. There's a lot of methodologies around it, but in your day, not every task is going to be as big as the other task. So I usually look at it as projects that break down to tasks, and those tasks have time associated and stakeholders. Knowing what big projects you have to tackle every single day, then kind of breaking those down, putting those onto your time blocks. There's also something called the Pomodoro Technique. The theory is 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And in those 25 minutes, it should be high intensity, really focused work. And I think the stat around it is you can only really have about like 3 or 4 Pomodoros throughout a day, meaning like those you're gonna have these bursts of like heavy focus throughout the day. So trying to think about 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. Now you can play around with that time. Maybe it's 40 minutes on and 10 minutes off, but you should have some kind of blocking mechanism when you're trying to get into the rhythm. Deep focus. That's called the Pomodoro technique. I go old school and I keep a pad of paper with me always for years and years and years because I like to physically write things down and see it. I have my tasks every single day. So the first thing I do is I just pull up my pad of paper and I write down tasks for the day. And then I organize them quickly and then I just get to it. And some of those tasks are heavier and I know they're going to take more time. So I have blocks on my calendar for that. And I love the 2-minute task. The 2-minute task for small tasks, in many cases, it's 2 minutes. Respond to an email, text this person back, schedule this meeting. Those are like really small 2-minute tasks. You just be banging those things out all day long. Changing up the scenery, really important. So actually, when you change up the scenery, it gives you a little bit of like a dopamine hit. You look, I'm old school, we're old school here. A lot of us grew up in an environment where you sat at a desk for 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. You sat in the car for 2 hours, then you sat at the desk for 8 hours, and then you got back in the car for another hour and a half, depending where you live. And that was your life for years and years and years. But now that we're in a static environment, working from home, changing up the environment goes a long way because you can think actually creatively in different environments. What I do now is I actually just take a block around 10:30. I jump on my bike and I ride down to Starbucks for about an hour and a half. And I sit there with a cup of coffee. And then that still focused, still have my same task list. Really nothing has changed. I'm just not sitting at this desk for the next hour and a half. After that, I take a longer ride back to my house, feel a little more refreshed, and I come back in, grab some water, and I just bang it out for another hour and a half. I'm like back at this desk. But just that little mini break. So getting up out of the desk and just walking around, these things, they go a long way, but you can time block them in as well. So if you time block it every 15 minutes, like 2 hours on, 15 minutes off, or whatever your schedule is, try to finding those small personal health things, mental health items in there. Nothing will ever be perfect. So one quick note on tasks is sometimes you just need to bang them out and maybe revisit them, but getting stuck on certain things and then having that take over the rest of your day, especially in a work environment where there's fires and you're constantly putting out fires. What happens when you live in a world where you're always putting out fires is the fire becomes the most important. And all these other things that seemingly are less important, they just get pushed off till tomorrow. And there's always another fire. And then all these other tasks get pushed off and another fire, right? So we end up living in this world where we're reactive versus being proactive. If you want to build a business, you need to live in the proactive. Setting specific times to check your emails, your texts, your chats, your VMs, your DMs, your social media, very important. We cannot live in a world where we're used by technology. We have to use technology. And those little mini distractions, seemingly small, are huge when you stack them up over a year. How many text distractions did I have in an entire 365 days? tons, massive, hours worth, right? How much more productive could I have been if I had just been more mindful about keeping my phone off when I was working on tasks? So keeping that in mind. You know, going old school, there's nothing wrong with going old school. You can have a timer, like a physical timer, but whatever you do, like just remember this device right here, it's built to distract you. Now, this has changed mankind for the better. We're all better for having these phones, GPS and all that stuff, but this thing is built to distract you. Every single app, everything that this thing has on it is built to take your attention. All of it. This is not your friend. You can make it your friend. Look at this as your enemy. Dead serious. I couldn't be more serious about that. I did a digital detox last year where for 30 days we disconnected from the phone and we were only allowed to use it to make phone calls and some basic things. I was such a better person after those 30 days. Why am I back on my phone? I don't know. I'm thinking about going back to the digital detox. But it taught me that this thing is really just there to like pull away my attention. And then obviously people are monetizing my attention, not me. I need to monetize my attention, right? I should be the only person monetizing my attention, not Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. So we got to use technology. The last thing I want to say is getting organized. So getting organized with your tasks, getting organized with your desk. I always tell my kids a dirty desk, a dirty mind, a dirty room, a dirty, right? Like you just got to keep it clean. Keep it clean. That goes all across the board. Kurt Lewin, a psychologist, said behavior is a function of a person in their environment. So if you open up your desk and there's stuff everywhere and it's just, you know, I don't need to drill that point home. You get it. Like try to keep it clean, try to stay organized, and you'll be more productive. So those are all the things that came up to mind as I was going through this whole exercise. I don't know how many of you have seen the Eisenhower Matrix, but I'm just gonna pull up on the screen real quick because this is a good way to look at our tasks. You can, in theory, look at your task and look at your schedule and ask one of these 4 questions, like, is this urgent, not urgent, is important, not important, and then how do I delegate this decision, or do I just delete it? Is this even something that needs to be on my desk? Do I need to do it right now? Do I need to stop? It's a fire. The world's falling apart. It's got to get done, right? So looking at all the tasks that we put in a daily basis, just kind of running it past the matrix becomes very, very useful.